Alexa, turn on the office. Hey friends, I'm Scott Hanselman. I'm going to chat with you about a notebook editor, a Jupyter notebook editor with .NET and C# that runs inside of Visual Studio. Why should you care? Let's figure out why you should care. Well, if you want to learn .NET, you want to learn C#, or maybe you're doing C# for a long time, you go to the .NET website, you might click on something like Learn to Code C#. You can learn all about how to do that. We have a whole free Learn to Code toolkit you can check out. And if you scroll down to the bottom, I've got beginner videos that walk you through things like ASP.NET and making applications for phones. And we also have stuff on how to do machine learning for beginners. Now, folks that do machine learning use a thing called Jupyter Notebooks. And Jupyter Notebooks is kind of like a mashup between writing a Word document that describes in regular language how you're going to do something, and a program, a custom program where you write a bunch of code to do a thing. So if I wanted to go and explore some data, I could write a whole program custom, or I could go and write a Word document that talked about the work that I'd done in Excel, or I could hand someone a notebook, and a notebook has both that prose, that conversation about the data, and code that manipulates the data itself. It's pretty interesting. So here's the deal. You get Visual Studio. You can just get that at visualstudio.com. I'm using Visual Studio Community, which is free for small businesses and open source. And then I'm going to grab the notebook editor. If you want to just go and search for C# notebook editor, you can find that really quickly. And you're going to find two things. You're going to find the C# notebooks GitHub and then the notebook editor extension. So install that extension, the notebook editor, into Visual Studio. And then what I did is I cloned this C# notebooks GitHub. And I put that right here, just kind of in my GitHub folder. And inside of that C# notebooks folder, I've got C# 101 that can teach me the C# language. I've got a whole machine learning class, Machine Learning 101, which is really cool. And then this one here that says Notebooks Getting Started. Now, when you launch Visual Studio for the first time, it's going to pop up this dialog box that has you opening projects, but you can also just open a local folder. So then I can navigate to that folder, and when I do that, I could open up the Getting Started folder here. So we've got Notebooks Getting Started, and we've got 1, 2, 3 notebooks, and then a reference notebook. These have the extension IPYNB. These are typically thought of as being Python notebooks, but Python interactive notebooks allow you to have different languages. So you don't have to do Python. You can do F# or C# or whatever. So here we've got our notebook open in Visual Studio. It opens up in its own tab right here. And this is the explanation of how they work. Now you'll see here we've got some prose. This is just some actual, like a little Word document paragraph. It's got some images. This is done in Markdown. And then we've got a cell here. This cell is actually interactive. I can click on it and it'll say hello world, and I can change that code. I'll say hello Scott, and I'll hit play. You can see right there inside of our interactive notebook, I changed the code, I ran the code, so I can explore and experiment. And then if I wanted to, I could double click here and I could write some more text, maybe format it a certain way, and then hit OK. And then that'll show up here. That's done with Markdown. Then I could hand you that, or I could check it into GitHub. I could email it to a friend, and then they've got that interactive notebook. I can explore variables, and I can mix and match code cells with Markdown cells. And that's pretty nice. And as we explore this, we can even reference different libraries. I can pull a library in. These are called NuGet packages, and then do different stuff. So here I could spin through a bunch of values, delay and pause, and then update those values. And you see right here in the corner, see that? It's displaying that value 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'll do that again. You watch this 0 right here, and it's going to spin 1, 2, 3. I could even make charts and graphs, which I'm going to show you as well, which is pretty cool. So I went and I cloned this, and I put it into a folder. And inside of it is this C# 101 folder. I can click in there. We'll go ahead and say C# 101. And we've got, basics of strings, hello world, numbers, integers, arrays, and stuff like that. Really cool. But what I'm going to explore is the machine learning one. This is a full course. It's an introduction to machine learning, which is pretty neat. So let me open that one up here in Visual Studio. Let's go all the way to the top here. Okay, check this out. So let's say that I had a CSV, a comma separated value document. Let me open up Excel and I'll show you what that looks like. You might have seen these kind of things before. Here is a CSV document that describes a bunch of hockey players from Europe. And you'll see it's got the nationality of the hockey player, it's got their height in centimeters and their weight in kilograms, and then a bunch of details about their names and their draft and their position and stuff like that. So this is some data. And if you have ever worked in an office, they might give you this data and they'll say, well, I've got all these hockey players and they're from Europe and this is in centimeters and kilograms, and I got all these hockey players in another file and they're from the US and it's in inches and pounds. Can you merge the data, combine it, and then reconcile? I want this all in pounds and inches. And then maybe, and I've got a third file in a totally different format that has their salaries. I need you to merge it all together. So we could do that. We could do that in Excel. But if this were more than just 10 items, if it was thousands or millions, that would go from being kind of data cleanup and manipulation to being data science. Things start getting more interesting. And then I might want to find out about like what size are future hockey players and do machine learning and predictions and stuff on it. And I'm going to outgrow Excel pretty quickly. So then this is that idea that I talked about before. Do I write a whole program, or do I get a whole custom program, or do it all in Excel, or do I do a notebook, which is going to let me do a little bit of both, which is cool. So let's try doing a notebook and see what that looks like. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up the DataFrame one inside of here, data processing with DataFrame. And each one of these cells can be individually run. So here we're going to include something, and then we're going to reference something. So we're going to pull in this nightly build of some data. I'm just going to click play, and it's going to pull in these packages. It's going to pull in Microsoft Data Analysis and then the machine learning package just by hitting play right there. I'll scroll down and it's explaining to me what it's going to do. We're going to start by loading our data from the first players into a frame of data. Now this little function here, it's got about 30 lines. I just hit play. This is going to make that function available to us. It's going to ensure that the data set gets downloaded. And all it does is it goes over to GitHub and it grabs that CSV file. That's the one I just showed you in Excel. So here we're going to go and load USA Hockey. We're going to load that up and we're going to put it into a variable called USA DF, or USA Data Frame. And then we can look at that data frame here just by hitting play. And just by referencing that variable here, we are seeing it in columns. We have columns and rows, just like Excel. So I've loaded a comma separated value list up into a variable, and I'm displaying that variable here inside of my program. My program is a notebook. I can hand someone this notebook. I could save this notebook, email it to them, and they could explore it as well, or I could check it into GitHub. It's pretty neat. Now we're going to go and grab the Europe data, which is going to be a little bit different. And in pulling in that European data, as we mentioned before, that data is a little bit different. It's got data in centimeters and kilograms, so we're going to have to reconcile these hockey players' data. Now we can go and do other things to it. We can look at the data. We can see that the birthday is in a different format. We can look at the counts of these values and see how many people we have in each country. That's cool. And then we can go and normalize that data. And again, we're just doing this by writing a couple lines of C#. But what's cool about it is that it's not a program, it's a notebook. I can make changes. I can make mistakes. I can change those mistakes and then just run the cell again. I don't have to run the whole program again. So here we're going to take their weight in kilograms and their height in centimeters, multiply and divide. And now we're going to set those weights and heights into the standardized format, which unfortunately is going to be the one that we use here in the US. We'll change their birthdays as well. We can go and look at that information. And then I'm going to combine the data. We'll take that USA one, we'll clone it, make a copy, put it into all players. We'll take the Europe ones, turn them into a list, and then we're just going to append them in place. And now I have a list of all the players. Here's all the players from the US. We'll scroll down just a smidge. And then we've got the European ones with their height in inches and their weight in pounds. Now we got some nulls in here though. Maybe we want to remove those nulls so we can make some changes here, fix their draft years, pull that data in, and remove the nulls if necessary. Now this data that we have in another file is going to be a JSON file, a JavaScript object notation file. That has its data in a different format than comma separated. It's JSON format. So what we're going to do, again, still inside of Notebooks, we're going to pull that data in. We make an object that's shaped like a player's salary, suck that data in. Now we've got the names of those folks and their salary. I don't know what format that's in, or if that's dollars or something, but man, hockey players make a lot of money apparently. Convert different columns, 2 columns into 1. Yep, look at that. I made a mistake there. So here we got an error. That's cool. Check that out. So we can see our error interactively inside of our data frames here. It says first name did not exist. Probably didn't bring that in earlier when I go and add these things. You want to run each of these cells one at a time as you go through the thing. You can also go and hit run all and run every cell all at once if you want to, which is cool. And when you do that, it'll run them one at a time, all the way down, go through the whole process, merge those frames together, and then now we have all the players plus salaries. So we've taken 2 CSV files, we've converted our heights to a standardized format, we've converted our birthdays to a standardized format, and then we've brought in their salaries. And then when I made a mistake, I can go back, make a change to that, and then again, run each cell individually inside of this application. And then at the end, write it all out and say, look, here's the allplayers.csv. So it's a lot more interactive than just doing this in Excel, and it's more reproducible because now I could restart the whole thing. I could send it to someone, they could refine it. We can check it in as code because the notebook is a kind of code. Now here's where it gets cool. Now that we have information, we might want to visualize it. We might want to graph it. So we're going to bring in a package called Plotly for .NET Interactive. We're going to tell our C# notebook that we're going to use Plotly. And then let's just do some sample graphs and stuff. Maybe we'll make a list of some doubles and we'll make a list of some strings. That's cool. We'll run those. And then here I'll just say hello from Scott, and I'm going to say chart.point, and I'll give it 2 doubles and a string. And we'll be like, yeah, cool. Hello from Oregon. I'll hit play, and look at that. Plotly, along with .NET Interactive and this notebook, went and put that in there. Again, that notebook is the notebook editor. That's an extension you can add to Visual Studio. And now I'm bringing in scatter plots, go and do a bar graph with that data, whatever you want. Now you see these things on the left here, that y-axis, A, B, C, D. Where did that come from? From right here. So, who knows what that is? Maybe it's Scott and Maria and Fred and Anna and Joe. I can go and run that, change those variables, do a different scatter plot, come back down, do a different bar chart, and you can see that the chart is driven directly by the code because it's all interactive in one notebook. So it's different than writing a program. You're writing a interactive notebook, an interactive Jupyter notebook with .NET. This is super cool. I think it's a great way to learn how to code, but it's also a great way for folks to manipulate data in ways that they didn't realize. So there is a whole how to learn C# up there in the repository. And then there's also an entire machine learning introduction all the way through, and including including model evaluation using a thing called AutoML and ML.NET. You'll eventually learn about it, prep your data, get it way you want it, train a model, and then run a model and do predictions. And there's lots of cool end-to-end examples where you can take different data sets and explore that information all in an interactive way. That is up at the .NET C# Notebooks repository. If you go up there and you scroll down, you can do it in either VS Code. What I've been using is just VS 2022 and the Notebook extension, which is super cool. The Notebook extension right here. So that is interactive notebooks with the notebook editor. Didn't know I could do that. Thought it was pretty cool. If you go and find the notebook editor, you just click on it, shows up immediately, and then you can open these IPYMBs up, and they'll also appear inside of new items. So you can go and say, I want to make a new notebook. You could do your coursework in it. If you're a professor or a teacher, you could hand folks notebooks that maybe have errors. They could then fix them. It also could be a cool way to do interviews. You could have a problem that was half done and then a comment that says, put your code here, and then run tests, and then have images or things appear if they succeed. Pretty neat stuff. All you need is Visual Studio and the Notebook Editor extension. Let me know in the comments what you think, and if you want more detail on how to make more advanced notebooks. Thanks, friends. Alexa, turn off the office.